Marketing is hard. But I'll tell you a little secret. It doesn't have to be. Let me point something out. You're listening to a podcast right now, and it's great. You love the host. You seek it out and download it. You listen to it while driving, working out, cooking, even going to the bathroom. Podcasts are a pretty close companion. And this is a podcast ad. Did I get your attention? You can reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Libsyn Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a pre-produced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience in their favorite podcasts with Libsyn Ads. Go to libsynads.com, that's Libsyn, ads.com today.
You're listening to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, the show that proves no one stumbles upon success ever, with your host, Lou Need. Every Mondays and Thursdays, we deliver cold hard evidence behind the power of a robust morning routine. Get ready to be transformed by the renewal of your mind.
Hello, morning enthusiasts. Welcome to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lou Need, and today I have the honor of introducing a phenomenal guest to the show, Mark Phillips. Mark is all about hiring and sustainable business practices, so remote company culture and mental health for leaders. He owns HireEducation. He supports his team to build authentic and inclusive partnership. His narrative is relevant to EdTech professionals, you name it, startup, small businesses, ethical innovation, and remote leaders. So I'm excited to have him on here just to kind of tell us about HireEducation and how he is helping employers and job seekers simultaneously. So with no further ado, Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Doctor. I'm happy to be here and excited to connect with your audience for sure.
Yes. We love a hero's journey. Tell us how you came about to be on this path. Let's hear about your how you got this all started for you.
So I got into recruiting in the late 90s by accident. I was running a small delivery business at the time. I was in my late 20s. I had a humanities degree that I wasn't sure exactly what to do with. And, and I ended up meeting a gentleman in Chicago socially who was a recruiter. And he said, "You'd be really good at this." My parents were both musicians, so I didn't know much. I didn't know anything about recruiting. I'd never worked with a headhunter. So, it was a big learning experience for me just to even understand what the business was, much less whether or not I thought I would be good at it. So like a lot of really meaningful things in life, it was a happy accident that led me to what I do. And then I think, when you have a happy accident and it's fulfilling on some level, you tend to just keep making investments and ideally continue to iterate and continue to learn and continue to improve. I mean, I think that's true in, so many relationships, whether it's the relationship with a person, with a family, with a job, with a career. So it was an accident, but then I could sort of applied a lot of energy to trying to figure out how to be better at it. So.
And master it. Yeah. The happy accidents are usually the best. It's almost like a trip unplanned and then you have the best time of your life. And so I'm really excited to have heard that's how you fell into it. But it's fulfilling just helping people land a position, right? It's people's livelihood, especially like businesses too on both ends. So let's talk about the joy that brings you, the passion, because I'm all about like, how does that drive you, fuel you on a daily basis to want to get better, to want to improve, to want to continue what you do?
Yeah, I mean, career, capital C career is such an interesting category because it's constantly changing. Like, it's not really wide swings from one work reality to another. But like, if I think back to those early days when I first got into recruiting, like the business world is really different now. And so helping people navigate changing career norms, helping people navigate really personal decisions like their income, their ability to create a life, sustain a life, provide for their families, or even just for their own individual goals. Like there's so much in, again, capital C career management that is deeply, deeply personal. So I think I really love that piece about it.
Yeah.
The other dynamic that is at play, on a daily basis or hourly basis with me is just working with my team. So it's,
Mhm.
as a company, we're working with a market and we're engaging with the market on these deeply personal objectives and
Yeah.
projects and things like that, but then also internally just how we navigate, how we grow, how we shift and change is a constant source of learning and fulfillment too. So I think my answer to your question is that there's just so much raw material both externally
Yeah.
and internally that I just never, it's never boring. Like there's never a dull moment. And then you add on to both of those things, changing business environments, political environments, economic environments. Like it's a really fascinating place to be. And I think anybody that loves what they do probably would say the same thing about their
Their field.
careers.
What keeps it exciting is it's forever evolving.
So true.
And for you, in one particular way, is baby boomers versus this next generation where employment is seen differently.
Yeah.
You can elaborate a little bit more about that. Cross generational, how has that shift changed in terms of hiring and recruiting? Because the values, the motivation is different for baby boomers versus millennials and beyond.
So true. So I'm a Gen Xer. I'm in my mid 50s. So when we came of age and started, working in the, early mid 90s, call it, things were already shifting. There was already a shift away from the idea that you worked for one company for 20
Yeah.
years and retired with a gold watch on your wrist. So
Yeah.
things were shifting then, and I think have just continued to do so. Late 90s, the web boom came along and software development became a thing. And that's right when I started recruiting. And I was a humanities guy. I had an English degree and loved poetry and fiction and nonfiction too. And all of a sudden I'm recruiting software developers who had pursued very different educational objectives than I had. And then there was the Great Recession of 2008. Then there's COVID, and I mean, you're 100% right. Like the work, the career landscape is really different now than even what it was in the late 90s when I first started recruiting. And I think because we're in a services business, it's on us to constantly be listening to things that our candidates tell us and things that our clients tell us. And, when people are not aligned with what's happening in the market, we can be an agent of change with them.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I think we're kind of like journalists in some way. Like we're taking inputs from all over the place and constantly evolving our narrative to reflect those things that are changing. And, I mean, the other reality here, I kind of touched on it a minute ago, but employment is highly regulated.
Yeah.
And so, the world of politics, the world of legislation, can change things really, really differently. I'm in California, and that's can be a very different sort of employment landscape for employers and for employees to navigate than, a state like Florida, as an example. So, things change, political environments change, legislative environments change, social norms change. And I think that's one of the things, kind of to the previous point, that's one of the things I love about this field. But also, I think one of the things that makes a good recruiter is the ability just to, constantly keep an eye out and an ear open for things that are changing.
Yeah, and downloading that information from both of your clients. You have two set of clients, right? You have the employer, you have the job seeker, and kind of marrying the two, be the medium to kind of make everyone happy. And so I imagine that's one of the features, one of the perks that makes you unique. Tell us about some of the other services that qualify you, but also make you stand apart from the others.
as an organization that is trying to integrate information and download information from multiple different sources, from companies that are hiring, for candidates that are looking for work, for people that have been in their jobs for a long time, we're also constantly kind of taking that information and reflecting internally about who we want to be, how we want to grow up. When I first got into recruiting in the late 90s, it was a eat what you kill.
You get a job, you're good, you've made it. Yeah.
Yeah. 100% commission. I was 100% commission for years without great benefits. So I think as we have evolved, as our marketplace has evolved, we have also evolved as a company. And certainly, like, we moved to we got rid of our office in late 2019, about 4 months before
a shutdown.
Everybody went remote in COVID in 2020. And so we've learned alongside a lot of people about what it takes to maintain a strong culture. How do you keep employees engaged when they're working across all time zones and, in many different kinds of home environments and things like that. So, I think we today place a really high priority on having happy people.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of in the Ted Lasso model of management, and
nice.
And that feels very different from what I learned, in the early days of my career, and I really enjoy it. It leads to what I feel like is a very fulfilling dynamic for me and for the managers on my team and for our people. So, the one thing that I'll say that I think stands out, well, two things I'll say. One is, one of our core values is put the team first.
Yeah.
And that has implications for our clients too. I mean, we sort of regard them as part of our team. And very often we're working, as an outsourced arm of a team for our client. And so that the need for human relationships, for kindness, for ethics to be sort of central to how we do our business is pretty important externally. And then internally, those things are true too. The one thing that I think, at least as I talk with other managers and business owners about how they run their business, we start our day, and this gets a little bit at maybe a point that we'll address in a little while about morning routines. But at the beginning of the day, we have 30 minutes on Monday, but 15 minutes set aside every other day for the team, and we can't talk about work. It's relationship time, right? It's only for talking about what went down with your kids over the weekend, or a movie that you saw, or a recipe that you like, or book that you read. So I think that makes us unique.
Yeah.
And then I think we carry that focus on relationships out into the marketplace. And, that's an ever evolving and constantly perfecting dynamic. We're constantly feeling like we're getting better at relationships, but I think we're trying to be explicit with the language, with our core values, the way we talk about them, and with the processes that we have in place. And I think that shows up. I think the feedback that we get from clients and candidates suggests that they get it and they experience what we want them to experience. But it's also constantly evolving, right?
Yeah, I love this 15-minute. I think I had one other person mention they do that, and they're very successful as well as you are, is the 15-minute just to build those relationships with your employees or with your team. Because I imagine they're just so eager to tell you about the wins they had over the weekend or with their kids in their life. Everybody loves to talk about the success and what's going on with them. And then it puts them on a first one-on-one basis. And so I might just steal that for my own team. With your permission. I do love that.
Absolutely. I know it feels like a really small investment to make in people. And, as I said, it seems to be working now, and it sets the day off on a great way. Now, that's the morning for me in the Pacific Coast. So it's in the middle of the day. It's like lunchtime. Yeah. It's on the East Coast. And that's a dynamic that just you can't really get past if you're working across all time zones. But that's okay. I mean, I think everybody looks forward to that time, and we all view it as an important part of maintaining a really healthy team dynamic.
Absolutely. So I noticed that within the team, there's that culture, there's that leadership coming from you, and I love the Ted Lasso piece of it. I mean, I think every leader should run their organization that way,
Gotta
empowering
believe, right?
others. Yeah, gotta believe, empower everyone, and then
Yeah.
acknowledge everyone.
Yeah.
Do you find that you're doing executive coaching? You're coaching the job seekers. You're coaching, say, some of the leaders to when they get to land that position, how to thrive and be successful in it.
Yeah, I mean, everybody comes with their own stuff. So some people, imagine somebody that got a job right out of college and, they approach us 3 or 4 years later when they're ready for the next thing. That person has never been through a job search.
Yeah.
That person has, may not be experienced at interviewing. Conversely, we work with a lot of startups and founders of startups who have never hired a team before. And so, I mean, I think, there certainly are plenty of people that we've worked with, dating back 20 years who know the drill, and they trust us as a source of leads or market insight, but they know how to interview and they know how to find a job. We just fulfill a role for them. We have other people that are in a much different place in their lives. So I think yes, we do get the opportunity to coach all the time. I would say daily, maybe hourly, but really kind of depends on who's on the other end of the virtual table from us and who's talking to us, what they're bringing and what they need. If they need a lot of coaching, we're equipped to provide that. And if they don't, they just need, an agent effectively, then we can provide that too. Yeah. So I think that's an interesting dynamic at play in a services business like ours, right? I don't have a product that only does one thing.
Yeah.
Our product is people. Our product is a service that engages people with new people.
Relationship.
Yeah. And it's just constantly changing. So I think we're pretty good at sort of pivoting and making sure that we're uncovering what the real need is in the early part of an engagement. Again, kind of like journalists, right? I mean, you don't want a journalist who is telling you the story. You want a journalist who's asking really good questions and making sure they've got a full data set to present. And so we kind of view our job in a very similar kind of way. So people can bring whatever level of expertise with job change they have to us, and we can serve them to the extent that they need serving.
Yeah, well said. That is a great segue to how do you assess candidates for positions? As a journalist, got to ask the right questions. Yeah, how do you do that? How do you get your team to facilitate that?
It depends on the job, right? I mean, we have a client. So let's say we have one of those startup clients, and they need somebody who doesn't need a lot of process. They need somebody who's very self-driven. They need somebody who can maybe wear a lot of hats. And, on the other end of the spectrum, a very large company, you might have a client who needs somebody for whom professionalism is a key driver and for whom operational excellence is a key driver. So it changes from job to job. And so we take through, every search that we launch, we're spending at least an hour with the hiring manager, making sure that we understand that stuff. And then we craft our interviews and we craft our outreach strategies with those requirements in mind. And, they change. So I think key point number one is to make sure that we're holding true to whatever it is the client is after.
Yeah.
I think irrespective of the client, we want to make sure that we understand the candidate's objectives, right? So let's say I've got a VP sales search for a startup client, and we talk with the client, we understand what we need to do in order to be successful. And I call you. I'm not going to call you and say, hey, I've got a VP sales search with a startup. I'm going to start saying, how are you? Tell me about you. Tell me about where you are in relationship to your career. Are you open to new career opportunities? And if the answer is yes, the second question is, what kind? What's important to you, right? So we're adopting that kind of discovery process, not only with the companies, but also with the candidates And if you told me, well, I'm really excited about startups and I'm a sales leader and I'm really interested in another opportunity with a startup software company where I can be a sales leader and really put my fingerprint on the organization, then we have a potential match and we can talk about it. I think that's a really important key to our process, is just making sure we're not proposing before we've done discovery, right?
Yeah. You have great strategy because you're fishing for organization fit as well as person fit. And that takes out, that's the majority of the work. That's the bulk of the work that a lot of employers don't have the time, the resources to allocate towards this process. So I imagine your retention rate is pretty awesome.
I think it's good. I think we beat we beat industry averages. I mean, there are, in any kind of situation where a person is going to work for a new company, there are variables that are way beyond our control, even just general economic variables or, investment variables or managerial variables. There's a ton of stuff, but I think we're way out ahead of industry averages. And, if a company chooses to work with us, they're significantly improving their chances for success. Similarly, I think a candidate who's entrusting us with the next step in their career, they can trust that we're listening to them and listening to what their objectives are and trying to frame any presentation of an option to them in the context of what they said is important. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I like that. With the work that goes into it, I imagine people are happy once they get there. They get to their job.
I think in most cases.
Yeah. Mark, tell us about how you get up, dress up, and show up. What's your morning routine like? How does it help you get up to do what you do, work with a dynamic team, a remote team at that, and still experience this much success?
So I think the remote thing is really important, right? So somebody that's got to get over to an office is going to have a very different experience than I do. But I think there are a few things that have been meaningful to me that would apply across the board. I like to turn the light on as soon as I get up. I want a very clear difference between, sleep time and I'm ready for the daytime. And there's something really simple about turning on the light and just kind of starting the day and saying, here I am for the day. I'm ready. I'm awake. I'm applying myself. I like to remove a lot of choice from the morning. And let's say that my morning, I'm an early riser, generally up between 5 and 6. I have a couple dogs, so that's a dynamic too. But my mornings look pretty similar, from, let's say, 6 in the morning till 8:30 in the morning. So I got about 2.5 hours where almost every day it's the same. So, lights on, take the dogs out. I like to clean my kitchen in the morning. It's a really weird thing. And I'm not somebody who obsesses about household chores, but I have the same, I make the coffee the same way. I generally have the same breakfast every morning. It evolves, it changes. What I have today is different than a year ago, but it doesn't really differ that much from what I had a week ago or 2 weeks ago. So I'm not confronting a lot of change. I'm kind of living out a very habitual morning routine.
Yeah.
And I like to clean the kitchen. I don't know why. I don't listen to anything. I'm not listening to podcasts or music, but there's something about just engaging with a process in the morning that kind of, I think, sets me off on a direction that I really enjoy after the kitchen is clean. And that's usually, maybe 15 minutes, maybe 20. It's not a huge time investment, but I feel grounded.
Yeah.
And then, physical activity is really important to me. I'm a runner. Right now, I am not running in the morning, but I do my strength exercises and my mobility exercises in the morning. So I'm probably moving my body between 30 and 60 minutes every morning. And I'm not making choices about that either. I've got a program that I follow from a coach that's got exercises listed out. And so I kind of am just following directions there. But that seems to work really well for me. Just make sure I'm moving my body early in the morning.
Of course. Yeah. It gives you energy throughout the day too.
Yeah. I think, what else do I do in the morning? This, from the time that we started working in a remote way to now, I've learned a few things. And one of them is that if I'm worried about waking people up, like that means that I end up being in my inbox too much. I'm not on a call or I'm not engaged. I don't know. There's something about my office is now on the other side of the house from the bedrooms. And that wasn't always true, but there's something like, if you can, and I know that it's not possible for everybody, but if you are free to make as much noise as you want, to do a podcast or to have a conversation with a colleague, I think that really helps with the morning routine. If you're trying to be quiet and tiptoeing around, I don't know. There's just a part of me that feels like that's starting your day off with limits, and there's residue to that. So there's no, rocket science to my morning routine, but that's, when I reflect back about what's worked since we went remote, those are the things that really come to mind.
Yeah. And it's whatever works for you. That's the beauty of the morning routine. It's seasonal. It can change depending on where you are in your business.
Totally.
Where you are with your team, where you are with the family members. Yeah. It varies quite drastically. And that's okay. As long as you have those processes in place to help you mentally prepare, stimulate you mentally, prepare you, get your body moving, giving you the energy you need for the day. Because it's all about being productive and being your best self. How do you do that? And what does that look like? Essentially, right?
Indeed.
I love something that you said is you are on autopilot in the morning. Like you minimize your decision making. It's genius. Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, they wear the same shirt every day. It's not the same one, but like same color, shirt, the same outfits, because the decision fatigue is real.
Yeah.
Why waste your willpower trying to figure out what to wear, what to eat, or whether you want to go work out or not? If everything's already planned out and laid out, you go through the motions, you're saving that for the bigger items on your list, like your team, your client.
It's so true. And things are always, I can't plan out things with my team. I can plan out some things. I can have regular cadence of meetings. I can plan out some things with clients, but the nature of being in a services business is that things interrupt you.
Yeah.
New realities come about that you have to be able to respond to. If I know that my day, some number of hours or minutes a day are going to be reactive.
Yeah.
I want to make as much of my day non-reactive as possible. And that morning, like I said, that's 2.5 hours of time in the morning that's scripted. It just works, it works. And I think it kind of sets a tone for the rest of the day too.
That's got to be the best I've heard it explained. Okay. Yeah. That's got to be the best. It puts you in control. You want some type of control. If the rest of the day is going to kind of run away and do its thing, but you've taken care of yourself, so you can take care of everyone else or everything else that's coming your way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's think about like the experience of a parent of a young child. Like there's so much that you can't predict.
Mm-hmm.
Why not give yourself as much predictability as you can? So if it's for an hour in the morning or 2 hours in the morning or whatever, like make as many things as you can be predictable, because there's only so much you can control, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well put. And I love the way you stated, because it's that autonomy, it's that power that it gives you. And when you are reactive, you show up better. You're less knee-jerked.
Indeed.
There's a difference being reactive and being just knee-jerk reaction to things, and it throws you off, and then you are not logical or processing as you should, and then everything's on the line.
I agree.
Yeah, well put. Mark, it's been such a pleasure having you on. Thank you for sharing your morning routine and the powerful insights. Where can we connect with you? Where can we find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn. My name is pretty common, Mark Phillips. So you'll probably find a million of them, but I'm in Los Angeles. So if you find Mark Phillips or HireEducation, our LinkedIn address is HireEDU, I think. Mm-hmm. And then you can find me through there. We also have a webpage, which is hireedu.com. And then if you go /Mark, There's a bio page about me and even a link to schedule time if you want to chat about, hiring best practices or sales best practices, or even, mental health for managers and entrepreneurs. I'm lucky enough at this stage in my life to have some cycles that I can throw at things that are not just purely about clients and candidates. And I'm always happy to try to troubleshoot a new problem or make a new friend.
You found some stuff that works.
Indeed.
Yes. Mark, we love quotes. Our favorite saying, give us one that resonate with you, if you will.
The best one is one that everybody has heard and that's that whatever got you where you are isn't enough to keep you there. And I think that's just like, that distills the nature of human existence, which is that you got to constantly evolve, right? And I think that's true in business, in family, with friendships, and with media, right? I mean, I'm sure your podcast is different now than what it was when you first started out. So I think just having a posture that welcomes and celebrates newness and evolution is really important.
And change, that's what I was thinking when you said it, is just accept it. Yeah. Embrace it. Like, it's going to happen. The sooner you embrace it, the better it is for you.
So
I like to add is the contrast is good.
Yeah.
When things are evolving and changing, it doesn't seem to be going your way. That is an opportunity to actually define what you're looking for.
Indeed.
More clearly. And so thank you for sharing that. Mark, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was great to meet you and look forward to staying connected. And thank you again.
Absolutely. It was a delight.
All right, morning enthusiasts, that's it for today's show. Thank you for tuning in. If you love the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, we'd love to hear from you. So go ahead and subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes or Google Play. While you're at it, tell a friend about the show. Be sure to visit bestmorningroutineever.com and our Facebook group to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our fantastic free bonus content. Until next time,